Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Glad to see you all. It is a great day, not just because it's Friday, although that's a pretty good thing. It's a great day because King Jesus made this day. So we are going to rejoice and be glad in it. And that's a choice. You are commanded to rejoice. That means it's a choice. So rejoice. Choose to be glad. The Lord is pouring out so many blessings on you. Look at those. Be thankful and rejoice. Well, it is Friday, August 2nd, which means it is the first Friday of the month, which means it is Family First Friday. So we're going to talk family today, and we're going to talk about education. Now, I know some of you don't have children of education age. Either you don't have children yet, or your children are past this point. And that's okay. It still might be worth pondering these things, and you may be called upon to give some counsel and advice to others down the road. So I think it'll be worth your time. We'll see. Why am I doing this? Reminder. Well, number one, because raising our children is important. The scripture puts a lot of responsibility on parents. King Jesus puts a lot of responsibility on parents, and we want to educate them well. Secondly, as we look at the world around us and we see how evil ideologies have taken over in the West, we have to combat that. And we do that in a variety of ways. But one of the ways is raising our children to be productive, to be smart and sensible and wise, to educate them, to teach them to fear the Lord, and to make a difference in this world with just general human behavior and obedience and productivity and those kind of things. And so this is, raising our children is a long-term plan of expanding the Lord's kingdom and casting aside the evil ideologies among us. So that's why we're doing this. So I want to talk about education. It's a question I've been asked a lot over the years, and it's worth thinking about. So we're going to talk about schooling, homeschooling, that kind of thing, and college. First, let me tell you about my kids. The proof is in the pudding, right? So I know I've told some of this, maybe all of this, at different points in different settings, but it's important to see. At least it's important for me to tell you, our approach has been successful, and my kids are thriving, and it's not because I'm better than anybody else, but maybe more focused on some of the right things than some people are. Many of us didn't have parents that equipped us well for thriving as adults. I think I've shared this before. My dad, in so many ways, in terms of Christian devotion and character and godliness and just being a good person, loving others, my dad was the best example I could hope for. But what he didn't do was intentionally prepare me for living in this world in terms of, pursuing job, education, some of those very practical things. Now, he set a good example, but he didn't intentionally educate me. So when I became a pastor, and people started asking my advice on parenting and schooling and such, but especially when my children were born, I realized, okay, I have this newborn, and now she is my responsibility to raise. What am I going to do in all these areas? What does the scripture call me to do? And so I began to really think through education. And when it comes to things like homeschooling, I grew up in a generation where the only homeschoolers I knew, and there weren't very many, they were, how can I put this gently? They were not the kind of people that you wanted your children to grow up into. They were very odd, to put it mildly. And there was a stigma attached to homeschooling. But then as I began to ponder it and evaluate my own journey through government schools, and my wife's experience, and all the way through college, I decided I'm not interested in handing off the education of my children to those systems. So we chose to homeschool. But back up to the proof of the pudding. So my oldest daughter, she graduated high school. She was homeschooled all the way through high school and wasn't sure exactly where she wanted to go because her real desire was to be a wife and a mother. But at 17, 18, she wasn't a wife and a mother yet. So she had to get a job. And she tried some things. And then eventually she decided to try this temp service and get exposure with different businesses, right? Entry level admin kind of work. And she did that for a while. And it was a great experience. It was hard. It was hard for her. But she did it and she learned the value of hard work and learning new skills and so on. Anyway, somewhere along the line, she joined for all intents and purposes, a bank, a financial institution that was part of a Christian denomination. And she had an entry-level position, customer care. And so she was receiving, calls from clients and would-be clients. And she had to learn all the ins and outs of financial planning and at least some of the terminology of things like estate planning and investment vehicles and that kind of thing. This is, we had talked about those things, but she didn't really care to own it. Well, now she had to. And she thrived. So much so that after she'd been there a little while, I went to a wedding where a vice president in her company happened to be there, and he found out I was her daughter, and he pulled me aside and said, she can go as high as she wants to in this company. I could see a very clear path to a VP position and even president someday. She's that good. Now, she didn't have any financial training prior to taking that entry-level job. But he saw something in her that said she has all it takes to thrive here. And then shortly thereafter, the president of the company handpicked her to be his personal assistant. And so the path was laid there for her. And then she, found a good man, got married, and pregnant with my first granddaughter. I think I've mentioned that, and so on. And they're overseas. So I'm glad, I'm thrilled. But the point is, she was prepared to be a very productive adult in the business world, so to speak. My second daughter, she got a college degree in high school, and got an associate's degree in American Sign Language. And now she is thriving in that and building her business and doing great work. She also, for a while, had a home cleaning business, and she still does that occasionally. But she had the two going together, and I would dare say she has more in her savings account than, if I remember the last stats I saw on this, more than like 90% of adults in America. My son, as I've talked about plenty, he's 19. He got married in January. He started his own business almost exactly a year ago, last August. And he is growing that business and doing it wisely, slowly, but continuously growing, and is just setting up for a very, very bright future. My oldest daughter, who went to the financial institution, and my son, neither went to college. My son took a few classes, but decided that was not the thing. So why am I telling you all this? Because part of my goal and objective and responsibility as a father was to raise my children to be productive adults. I've said before, my goal is to raise them as godly adults, and part of that is being productive. Going back to the very initial mandate to humanity, rule and subdue the earth. That includes productivity and thriving and earning a living and making money so you're not a burden on others, and building wealth so you can be generous to others and all that. And for my son to take care of his family and so on. And they've accomplished that. They're doing very well. And again, this is not simply to say, oh, look at, my kids. The point is, you can do this. Oh, Dr. Right Life is back again. Are you here to troll us again, or are you going to be good this time? I'm giving you a very short lease on this, or leash, I should say. So anyway, the point is not that that my kids are special. If you are the parents of young children, you need to set them up well for the future. And here was my approach to homeschooling when we chose that route. I wasn't first and foremost concerned that they get good grades, pass tests, memorize all the math tables and that kind of stuff. I wasn't primarily concerned with the things that schools are mostly concerned with today. What I wanted to do was prepare them so they could learn anything. You see the difference? I didn't care primarily that they learned everything that we taught them, especially things that can easily be looked up in a matter of seconds. And I don't know how much I'll talk about this today, but AI is going to radically transform education, in my opinion. And basic facts are going to be so accessible. They already are with the internet and social media and so on. But all of that, I think, is going to be changing rapidly. I wanted my kids to learn to think and to understand how to learn. Is that making sense? There's a difference between memorizing these facts and passing tests and learning how to learn. And the desire was that by the time they get 15, 16, 17, 18, and so on, they have the basic tools in their toolbox to learn how to learn, so that as they get to the point where they have to make some decisions, they need to head a direction and learn skills or pursue whatever they're going to pursue to earn money, even if they have no ability or prior education in that thing, they have the tools to learn it and to learn it well and excel at it. And this plays into what we talked about in previous Family Fridays, character, the self-discipline to listen to others, the humility to say, I don't know everything. I need someone else to teach me. And the simple things of showing respect to your authorities and showing up on time and hard work, all that character plus the tools of how do I learn? How do I go about engaging with this entirely new subject matter, this new field, like finance, like my oldest daughter, this field. Okay, how do I learn? I hear these terms. I'm responsible when people call in and they want to know, how is my 401k doing, or how is this doing, or what do you all do as far as estate planning, whatever. What do those words even mean? What is a 401k? And what are the tax benefits, implications, those kind of things? Well, for someone who's never had exposure to that, which I'm assuming there's probably some of you that don't know anything about that. But she was able to learn it and learn it quickly and dive in and really understand how it all worked so she could speak intelligently, which is different from someone who is good at learning facts. So they, can have their sort of script that they read from when someone calls in with these questions and give certain responses back. But then when the follow-up question comes, it's not on the script. They have to pass them off to somebody else. Well, I wanted to train my kids to be able to learn something to such a degree, to take ownership of those responsibilities so they could engage with the caller at length because they really understand it themselves. So like my son starting the business, to really dive into how do businesses run. He learned the skills of landscaping. And then he has to learn how to run a business, and he continues to learn how to do that. He's very, very new in this, but he is able. My son was not, as his sisters will be happy to point out to you anytime if you ask them, my son was not the model student in terms of grades and learning, math and geography. We make fun of him a lot because he was a very old age as a teenager and still did not know all of the states of the U.S. and and geography and so on. But that's the kind of thing, as he has a need to learn it, he can learn it, and the information is readily available to learn all those things. He didn't need to know, just didn't need to know so much about what all 50 states were. But and his math skills, he never did excel at algebra and geometry and some of those things, but he learned how to learn. So now as math comes into play as far as estimates and figuring out how many clients at what rate he needs to, how much he should charge on a monthly basis or whatever to make this amount in a year. He's got to factor in taxes and expenses and all those things, general accounting things. Now he will go and learn math, and he has learned the math he needs to run those businesses well, not because he already knew how to do it, but because he knew how to learn. And that encourages me because that's what I wanted him to do. And he's applying his learning to all kinds of things. My son-in-law was a rock climber, is a rock climber. And my son wanted to learn that. And both my daughters jumped in on that. And they had the tools to learn and to think through what, instead of just going and following the leader, like learning how all the equipment works and what it's called and how to do it safely so they don't plunge to their death or too much harm. That was our goal. That's what we wanted. And all three of my children, I am convinced they can learn to do whatever they want, because we approached it that way. The last thing for today is, how did this play into our college decisions? Again, my oldest and my youngest didn't go to college, and my middle daughter did because she had a very specific skill that she was pursuing, the American Sign Language, and you have to be certified. You have to have a degree. So because she knew that's what she wanted to do, she went to college to get that degree. And that's what I told all of my kids. We are not going to default to you going to college. We're not going to spend the time or the money. Instead, let's figure out what you want to pursue and make sure you get the right training for it. And there are so many free resources these days and apprenticeship model kind of things where you don't have to spend the money on college to get well educated in things that can bring a very lucrative return for a career. Again, my oldest daughter, they wanted her. They once she came in and was hired in customer care, they gave her the tools and had training available to learn the skills so she could be good at that and progress, which is great. She has no student loan debt, no debt at all, and now she's making good money and has the potential to make great money. So the default of just going to college seems to me to be unwise. Student loans just cripple people. And it so much is about the experience and the fun and all of that. Why would you spend that kind of money to send your kid off to get some experience? What are you looking for? Fun and good times and partying and all that? No. It should be, college is intended, well, originally, to educate so that the graduates have a skill that's productive for society and for making a living. But now it's been all about the party, and if you happen to get some good education along the way, great. The prestige of the school you went to, maybe, all that kind of thing. And in my observation, fewer and fewer managers care as much about the fact that you went to college, but what kind of person are you and what kind of experiences do you have? Now, there are exceptions, of course. You don't want a doctor operating on you who isn't educated. Although, when you look at our medical system now, you think, just because someone has a medical degree does not give me any confidence that they know what's best for our health. Certainly not on the preventative side, maybe on the acute trauma side, but as we've talked about in other contexts, I'm just unimpressed with a graduate of a medical system that is, it seems, largely corrupted by bureaucracy and big pharma and so on. And as far as preventative and maintaining health, they're just, I don't trust them, bottom line. Engineers, you want engineers to have an engineering degree, right? You don't want people that don't know what they're doing building your bridges and airplanes and things. So again, there are exceptions to all this, but as a general rule, you can raise your children to thrive as adults in productivity if you teach them how to learn, so that when they get old enough to really know what they want to shoot for and pursue, they have the tools to really jump in and learn it very quickly. And I'm telling you, it's going to get faster and faster and faster. The learning curve is going to get lower as AI improves, if we can keep it out of the hands of those who want to corrupt it. But there's just so much potential there. And I want to encourage you as parents, especially as fathers, give serious thought to what you're trying to do with education. And the standard government/public school approach is usually, and there are exceptions here, and there certainly are good teachers, especially Christian teachers who care about the right things. But the system itself seems largely about getting students to pass tests and giving them arbitrary grades, and the experience and the concern for their psychological well-being. Well, I have to be careful. Someone I was talking to recently was with a group of educators, and they spent in this workshop, and they spent something like 60% of the time telling these educators how much concern they need to show for how they express things, because if they express things this way, it's going to discourage the children and they're going to feel bad and so on. And then about 40% of the time was talking about actual education. And that there's a reason. There are lots of reasons why American education is so poor, and our results of our education is so poor. I mean, even on just the pure test-taking mentality and that kind of thing, if we let the free market go, where teachers were paid according to the quality of their graduates and how well their students actually did, then all the bad teachers would be run out of the market, and we'd only have good teachers, and that immediately would improve the quality of education. And teachers wouldn't be so concerned with, oh, how do my students feel about this or that? They would be concerned with making sure their students learn something. Well, when you're homeschooling, you can take control of that, and your goal can be whatever you want it to be. And again, for us, at least, we want them to really understand how the world works, the importance of learning, the importance of always learning for the rest of your life, and being productive, and what can you do to contribute. And, well, I'll leave it there. Do you have any questions, comments before we call it a day here? Dale says, my last state capitals test grade was a 52. Yeah, I don't. I think if it were multiple choice, I could do well, but if I had to fill in the blank, I'm not sure I would do so well. Unlike my wife, who remembers all that stuff, she'd get 100%, and even with some European, other states, I should say, and other nations. I know they don't have state capitals, but you know what I mean. Which that brings up a point too. We do have different aptitudes, it seems. For me, it's always been, I will memorize and learn the things that I need, but if I don't need them, I just don't care to commit it to memory. Whereas my wife, she just has this great memory for those kind of details. It's amazing how many times we'll be out for a walk, or something will pop up on social media. The number of species of birds and dogs and other animals that she knows It's not like she sits around studying this stuff. But once she learns that that's what that species is, she has it forever. And I look at that and I say, it's a dog. It's a big dog or a little dog. It's a brown dog. I don't even naturally take a peek to determine whether it's a he or a she. I usually just default to he. And my wife will be, that's a girl. Like, oh yeah, I guess you can figure that. So, I know a handful maybe of the different breeds of dogs. She knows all these different breeds and birds, and we'll be out walking, and that's a house finch, and that's a this, and that's a that. I got it's just a bird. That's about all I know. I know the crows and magpies kind of thing. Anyway, so we do have different aptitudes for sure, and some students are great at memorizing, but even for them, to teach them how to learn other things and prepare, I think is the path to making them productive, profitable adults, and something that we should give thought to. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so we will leave it there. I hope this is helpful for some of you. And again, even if you don't have children, you might want to have these conversations with others who do have children, and encourage them to not be committed to the governmental standards and testing and memorizing all those facts and figures, but really learning how to learn. There's so many opportunities to learn. As bad as the internet can be and YouTube and all that, there is so much good and so much that's worth our time and so many different skills to learn that we can do that. And by the way, the last thing I'll say is, as parents, we need to set the example for that. Model for your kids that you're always learning and you're always looking to be more productive and add to your talent stack. They need to see that. All right, we will leave it there. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will see you on Monday to pick back up the New Testament, and in particular, 2 Timothy. Grace and peace to you.